cities' wages are much higher than the increase in skilled workers' wages on their own. This is skills and city growth in U.S. cities. This is share of the population with college degrees in 1980 and subsequent population growth. Again, an enormously positive correlation. This is population growth for metropolitan areas in the Northeast and Midwest by education quintile. You'll see that it's really the most skilled cities in these colder, older regions that have managed to come back, right? There's no coming back for the Clevelands and Detroits haven't come back. It's the Bostons and the Minneapolis that have managed to succeed. This is a fact that's associated with Jim Roush and more recently with Enrico Moretti. This is economists talk about human capital externalities. This is the relationship between the share of the city that has a college degree and your wages holding your own skills constant. Okay, so you do a regression, you control for everything I know about you as a person, and then I look at how your wages go up as I increase the share of the population that surrounds you by 10%. And the number is something like 8%. So as the share of people with college degrees around you goes up by 10%, your wages go up by 8%. And that's been steadily rising over time. And if you do a sort of statistical decomposition, it's that productivity, the reason why skilled cities have becoming more populous is they're becoming more productive, right? That actually you earn more in these places. It also appears that skilled cities have increasingly attracted more skilled workers. So instead of seeing convergence of skills across American metropolitan areas, you see places that were more initially skilled becoming even more skilled. So this is the change in the share of the population with college degrees between 1990 and 2000 on the initial share of the population with college degrees. Places that started with more skills have become more skilled over time. There's also I started with this correlation between city size and earnings. This is really a fact that only holds true in more skilled metropolitan areas. So this figure in the next one, this shows the relationship between population size and gross metropolitan product per capita among the top third most skilled cities. Okay, and these are big differences. It rises from 56,000 to 81,000 between cities that are less than 125,000. It is a nice, simple, monotonic transfer change. This is among the least skilled metropolitan areas. Yeah, there's a bit of a bump up at the end, but the overall axis shows a change from 52 to 64 as opposed to from 56 to 81. Okay, it's a wildly different level of change. And again, this is suggestive of at least the idea that cities and skills are complements. That in fact what cities are doing is they're enabling high-skilled people to become more productive. And there are many models of this, right? One model is about skilled entrepreneurs complementing skilled workers. Another model is that if I learn from people in cities, it's more valuable when I learn from skilled people than when I learn from less skilled people. Skills are not the only determinant of economic success at the city level. A smaller literature exists. I think if there's a second variable I'd like to highlight at the city level, it's firm size. And I think we don't know exactly what this means, but it's an awfully strong correlation. It's kind of an interesting one. There's a very strong relationship between the average firm size and employment growth over the last 30 years. So places that have small firms have done much better than places that have big firms. Now you might think this is just something about the industries that have small firms or the average firm age, that these are places with just younger firms. So you can do a bunch of statistical exercises where you control for the average age of firms. This is actually, instead of looking at total employment growth over a longer period, this just looks at the entry by new establishments between 1992 and 1999, and this enables me to control for industry and industry age and lots of other things. And you still have a very strong negative association between average firm size and subsequent growth. And I throw this out as sort of a fact that I think is interesting, but not one that I think that we understand very, very well. From an Indian, so much of what I talked about is very U.S.-centered. I don't think there's anything here that's specific to the U.S. The impact of manufacturing, of course, and manufacturing's dispersal feels different, say, if you're in a Chinese city than if you're in the U.S., because, of course, it's the Chinese cities that are manufacturing the goods that we're losing. But, the long-term comparative advantage that comes from being a low-cost good producer is never going to be a high-value item. Right? In a globalized world with low cost of transportation, that's never going to be where the money is. The money is always going to be in terms of coming up with new ideas and being innovative. So I think in that sense, the things that I've been talking about are going to continue to hold. And this ability of cities to transfer ideas is particularly important when we look across countries, across continents. Cities have always played this role as the transmitter of ideas. And if you think about again, I'm being unduly Western here, but think about Athens, right? A place which has an amazing amount of innovation going on in the 5th century before the Common Era. What's going on in Athens is you have this, Greek diaspora. You have all of these, Greeks that are spread out throughout the Mediterranean in different cities. And Athens has this extraordinary military and economic success in the 5th century, and a lot of them come to Athens. And they have names like Anaxagoras and Prodicus, who then come and teach Socrates, who then teaches Plato, who then teaches Aristotle. It's again sort of a chain. And this is true in many different areas, but it's wisdom that was often accumulated by connecting with other older cultures, right? And that stuff came to Athens and then interacted and then created something quite magical. This type of story goes on in many different cities. Think about Taxila, for example, which serves this function as being a transfer point for knowledge in India 2,500 years ago. Or, for example, Baghdad, right? This is, my kids are very fond of this guy. This is a guy called Jafar in a Walt Disney movie called Aladdin, and he's based on the Vizier Jafar, who is in the older movie The Thief of Baghdad, and he's based on a real person, a Barmakid who worked for Caliph Harun al-Rashid. But whereas he's a villain in Aladdin, I actually think of him as a great hero. The Barmakids are, of course, where's my slide on this? The Barmakid family is probably an old Brahmin family from Kashmir, and they're allied with the Abbasid caliphs, and they help in the takeover that then leads to the formation of Baghdad. And Jafar is himself one of the big sponsors of the House of Wisdom, which is a top-down, idea-producing thing that's created in Baghdad, which then imports knowledge from India, from Greece, from other places, and then creates the sort of churning of great ideas that happens in Baghdad. The guy next to Jafar is al-Khwarizmi, who then is responsible for allegedly inventing algebra, but of course he does so on the backs of Indian knowledge. And the critical document that's associated with both of these people is the Sindhind, which is this importation of astronomical knowledge from India into Baghdad. The Jafar role in this is allegedly Jafar. The House of Wisdom gets their hand on the Sindhind and they can't understand it. And as the legend goes, Jafar said, "Well, you're going to need to translate Euclid if you're going to make sense of this thing, because these guys are so far ahead of you. You can't even begin this without getting to the Greeks first." So Jafar allegedly said this, which the truth of this is probably zero. But it's, in any case, it's certainly no less true than anything Walt Disney said about Jafar. So I figure and there's nothing, this transfer then goes to Baghdad and then works its way back west through cities like Cordoba and Venice importing knowledge from the east. So it's this transfer that's going on, and again, Nagasaki is a transfer point of European knowledge to Japan in the 16th, 17th, and 18th centuries. All of these cities have played this function throughout centuries, and they're continuing to play it today. One of the reasons I continue to be bullish on New York and its role in the U.S. is New York is the entry point for so much of the world to the U.S. And as I have every confidence in the world's economy to continue growing, and I have every confidence in New York's ability to continue growing. And in the Indian context, it's why I think that cities are so absolutely critical. That being part of the world, being connected to the world, is clearly the future. And cities have this role to play, and it just means dealing with the problems that come with urbanization. So let me move on. This is just to remind you that there are poor places throughout the world. This is a favela in Rio. The favelas in Rio are particularly striking because they have such extraordinary natural beauty.